Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Gita Wisdom with Laksmi on this April 8th. I hope everyone is doing well. And thank you this evening for joining me. We have more good stuff to talk about from the Gita. So, Josh, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. Nice
Joanna,
to be here.
Trish, Jai Krishna, Amy, Juggy. Hey, Jug, what name do you want me to address you by? I see voice, your sound.
Jag. Jag is fine.
Jack,
Mhm.
Jag is okay?
The full
Okay.
name is Jagat, which means maybe you know.
Universal, universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have friends that are named Jagannath,
Mm.
and that's a name for Krishna, which means Lord of the universe. So I was, and but they also go by Juggy or Jug, So I just wanted to make sure that I knew the proper name to address you by.
Sure.
So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining me this very rainy evening down here in South Florida. It's incredible, but still we need it. So I'm welcoming it and embracing the
We
rain
got
because
snow.
next day everything is in blossom down here. So I'm okay with it. All right, so we're going to continue our sojourn through the Bhagavad Gita, and I believe I left off at text 15. So we'll begin. What I wanted to do, I'd like to review it by doing the last verse first, the last verse that we did last class, and then then we'll move on from there. So we'll start with text 15, and very interesting verse. The one thing I wanted to explain to everyone is that the Gita is like infinitely deep. The more you get into it, of course, the more benefit you get out of it. But it has so many different dimensions that it touches upon. For one thing, I want to say, for instance, the names that are used, I gave you a little insight into some of the names, but the names are used for specific reasons. Like Krishna is addressed by different names throughout the Bhagavad Gita by Arjuna, but they have relevance to the particular thing that they're talking about. And I'll explain a little bit about that because this verse, text 15, reads as follows. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell, called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta, and Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell called Pandra. So as I said, Krishna throughout Gita is addressed by Arjuna in different ways. Here, um, Krishna is also mentioned as Lord Krishna blew his conch shell. It's in the next verse, I think. Oh no, here, Panchajanya Rishikesha. Yeah, it's defined here. It's translated as Lord Krishna, but in the verse, he's actually addressed as Rishikesh. So what does Rishikesh mean? Now, for those of you that practice yoga, one of the principles of yoga is discipline to control the mind and the senses. And we talked a little bit about that when I used it's not my metaphor, but it's the metaphor from the Upanishads about the chariot, the horses, the reins, the chariot driver, and the passenger of the chariot. Um, so one of the things that metaphor brings forth is if the horses are not controlled, then they'll just run in different directions and they won't do the function that they're supposed to do, and that's to take the chariot from point A to point B in as fast a manner as it possibly can. But if those horses are uncontrolled, that won't happen. In India, India is a very, any of you ever been to India? I know Jai Krishna has been to India and Gokula has been to India. Anybody else been to India? It's a very unique journey. And if you ever decide to go, the best way to go to India is with a tour. There's a lot of very capable people out there now that hold tours. A couple of my buddies, Raghunath Kapo, Gauravani, Buckwald, Vishwambar Sheth, they all have tours that they do, and they're wonderful because you get to see a lot, but you get to know the significance, the relevance of what you're seeing. So, but the point of yoga is to control the mind and the senses, and if it's not, then we are subject to the whimsies and the pushings of the mind. It's described in another sacred text, Bhakti Yoga sacred text. It's described that there are six urges: Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udara Upashka Vegam. So it's described that a person who can control the Vegam, Vegam means pushings, the person that can control the pushing or the urge of the sense of speech to speak. You know how it is. You've probably said things that you regretted in your life, maybe out of anger. That's most commonly when it occurs. I know that's when it occurs with me if I get a little angry or frustrated. And I say a thing and then I think to myself, oh man, should I really have said that? What is the function? What's the purpose of me saying that other than maybe hurting a person's feelings or whatever the case may be? So the biggest challenge, of course, is these controlling these urges, and that's the whole methodology of yoga to control the urges. The urge, vacho vega means the urge to speak. Manasa vega means the urge of the mind. Now, I just had a brief discussion with a friend of mine, and he's suffering. He's really suffering because he's got three dogs. His favorite dog he lost. They passed away, and he's not able to handle it. And I went to jujitsu tonight to watch my son. He's in jujitsu, and his daughter's in jujitsu. That's how we met. And I met him there, and he wrote me a text. I'm really suffering, and I wrote him back a long philosophical text. And so I said to him, "Did you read my text? Because you're hurting, you're suffering right now." And my text addressed that. He goes, yeah, yeah. He said, I just don't accept suffering. I can't accept suffering. And we got into a brief discussion, but I had to get back here for class. So it couldn't go on too long. But I said to him, you can't accept suffering, but whether you accept it or not, it's there. Suffering is there. And suffering is part of being in this world, and it has a purpose. Suffering has a purpose. We see, right? I told you about the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita being Arjuna Vishada Yoga, which means Arjuna is depressed. He's suffering because of his attachments, and the end result of attachment is dejection or depression or sadness. So I was just about to launch into that. And I realized, oh no, I got to leave here because my son's class ends at 6:30, and then by the time I get back here, I'm 10 minutes away. I don't have much time to get everything set up. But the thing I was just about to tell him was suffering is caused by our attachments. You're very attached to your dog, and I understand that because your dog was a nice dog. I met him a few times, and he provided you with companionship and non-judgmentalism and so many things. So you had a strong attachment. But look at the result of your attachment. The dog is no longer here. The body may be somewhere. You may have buried it or burned it, whatever, but the dog, the entity, is no longer there. It's just like when my mother passed away. The first thing I thought when I saw her at the funeral home was, she's not here. This is not really my mother. Because my mother was vibrant. She was a very vibrant individual. She was funny and active, and what was there was not my mother. It was the remnants, let's put, of my mother, or the garment that my mother wore in this life. And sometimes people ask me, what is the practical application of Bhagavad Gita? Practical application of Bhagavad Gita is to develop this kind of understanding because we are all going to go through loss and we are all going to go through suffering of various ways and means. And the knowledge that comes to us through texts like the Bhagavad Gita help us to cope, help us to deal with the inevitabilities of life. So that is the relevancy of the Bhagavad Gita, is that we actually can, through knowledge, confront the various issues that we come up with in the course of our life. And that is very important. It's an important tool. It's an important instrument to deal with our life and all the things that will come about in our life. So knowledge is a very, very important component. And that's why Krishna gave us the Gita, so that we have real knowledge, not not information that changes with the course of time. Real knowledge is wisdom that has universal application, meaning it had application 5,000 years ago when Krishna spoke it to Arjuna, and over 5,000 years later, it still has application in our lives. And one who makes a serious study of Bhagavad Gita will see that. That has been my inspiration for 54, almost 54 years now. My inspiration to continue studying and living the teachings of Bhagavad Gita is because I've applied it, the knowledge from the Gita. I found I found peace, contentment, even in the most difficult of times. Now, I have to be honest with you. It's not like I didn't suffer, when I lost my mother or when I lost a friend. Now I'm at an age where I'm losing a lot of friends, unfortunately. I'm 75, and a lot of people that, I've grown up with in my spiritual practice are of similar age or older. And, I've lost a number of people over the course of these past, past 5, 6 years, especially. But it's not that you don't feel sadness, but it's how you address it, how you cope with it. And I've found personally that I've been able to cope with the most difficult times of my life through knowledge. Okay, Mukti is one of my brothers that we've traveled many years together in our path of bhakti, and he's also a very accomplished uh, massage therapist and teacher. having over 100,000 students. Thank you for attending, Mukti. Nice to see you. So we're talking about, Mukti, we're talking about the value of the wisdom of the Gita and how when we learn to apply. See, according to the Gita, there's jnana. Jnana means knowledge. And then there's vijnana. And vijnana means the application of the knowledge. So it's not that I'm petitioning you to become Bhagavad Gita scholars, but what I am saying to you that if you put into effect some of the things that we learn, then there will be vijnana. Vijnana means you'll have certain realizations, and realizations come through application. So when knowledge is applied, then you have these aha moments or realizations. So in the Gita, when we're studying, Krishna is dealing with Arjuna's suffering by explaining to him the process of yoga and how the application of the wisdom of yoga will help us to cope with all the things that we will have to cope with in the course of our life. Whether it's a breakup of relationship, whether it's financial, whether it's the aging process, whether it's disease, and you can go on with all of the things that we inevitably have to deal with in the course of our life. So this wisdom, this knowledge coming from the Bhagavad Gita, once we go through this and you see how um, different things, different points that Krishna brings up to Arjuna actually have a practical application, even 5,000 years after it was spoken. So, a little sidetrack there from the verse, but it's okay. So, Lord Krishna blew his conch shell called Panchajanma. Everything has some personality to it. According to Bhakti, Bhakti is the yoga of personalism, which means even the ultimate goal of connection is connection to a divine supreme person. In religion, it's called God. In yoga, it's Brahman, Ishwara, Param Brahman, etc. It's a little bit more detailed. The understanding of divine personality or God or controller or however you want to address that particular subject is it can be done in many different ways. That's the advantage of the Bhagavad Gita. It gives us insight to the various ways that divinity manifests in the course of our life, manifests in our heart, manifests as a supreme being, manifests as the energy, the spiritual energy, which causes everything to be moved, to be motivated. That's called Brahman. All of these things are there. So that is the purpose of Gita, and what we see here, Rishikesh is the name Krishna is addressed by, and that means controller of the senses, one who's perfectly in control of the senses. And we were discussing the urges of the senses, the urge of speech, the urge of mind, Vachavegam Manasa, Krodha Vegam, the urge of anger, very powerful urge, anger. The urge, Jiva Vegam, the urge of the tongue to eat. The tongue is very, very important in terms of urges and controlling. Vacho means urge of the tongue to speak. Jiva is the urge of the tongue to eat. Udara is the urge of the belly to eat. So tongue wants to taste, but belly wants to be filled, and it has an urge. Oh, I'm hungry, I'm ravenous, and that urge has to be filled. And then Udara Upashta Vegam. Upashta Vegam means the urge of our sex drive. We, as souls in the bodies of men and women, have a chemistry And, and part of our chemistry is the sex drive. And all of these urges through the process of yoga can be experienced and can be controlled. And when they are experienced with control, then they serve a higher purpose. So Krishna is referred to here as Rishikesh, the controller of the senses. Now, in context of where we are in the setting, they're on the battlefield, they're having conversation, Arjuna and Krishna, they're viewing the opposing army, Duryodhana, who's the head of the opposing force to Arjuna and his brothers. They've gone through some conversation, and we haven't been given both approaches to that. We've mostly been given Duryodhana's approach, and his approach to what he has to deal with in terms of warfare is more of a diplomatic or material approach. He's trying to convince people to be angry and to go into this battle with all fierceness because he's afraid because of attachment. This is the family, and it's comprised, most of the warriors in here have some relationship. So the relationship could have either proven reason to be angry and to fight them, or reason to be affectionate towards them. So, and Duryodhana's side in particular, his army was comprised of two generals in particular, Bhishma and Dronacharya, who had a wonderful relationship with both sides of the family. So when Bhishma blew his conch shell, he was doing it to reassure Duryodhana. Duryodhana was trying to convince Bhishma, don't be deluded by your attachment to the Pandavas. They're here to take over the empire, and you're here to do your dharma or your duty to me as the heir apparent to the throne, which was all not true. So we go through Duryodhana's approach, and now we're getting into Arjuna's approach to the whole dilemma of the warfare. So what is this? Bhishma blows his conch shell to try to inspire Duryodhana. Now Krishna is blowing his conch shell, called Panchajanya. Arjuna is blowing his Devadatta. Bhima is blowing his, called the Paundra. There's a different effect on the sound vibration. Well, there's a different, just to get into the general meaning of that, there's different effect to sound vibration. Isn't that true? In other words, even the tone of your voice, you can be saying the same thing, the same word, but if you change the tone of that voice, of your voice, that sound vibration will have a different effect. In other words, you take a word and you say that word in anger, right? And it has an effect on the hearer, the listener. You take that same word and you say it in a joking manner, same word, just like curse words, right? In the English language, we have a whole line of curse words. And you've probably said a few of them yourself in the course of time. Uh, you know, you say it in anger, right? It has a very strong meaning. You say it as a joke, it doesn't have the same kind of effect. So, depending on intent, and the intent is usually demonstrated by tone. According to neurolinguistic programming, there's three components to communication: tone of voice, content of what you say, and body language. And of the three, according to neurolinguistic programming, tone of voice is the most potent of the three. So sound vibration with intent to harm or intimidate or encourage has a different effect. So the words that were used in terms of when Bhishma blew his conch, he was doing it to appease Duryodhana. Now we get Krishna blowing his conch shell, the Panchajanya. Panchajanya is a significant word. Panchajanya was actually a demon that was that had kidnapped Krishna's teacher, Sandipani Muni, and he had this big, beautiful conch shell. Some say that he was the conch himself, and others say that he was a demonic force that had a conch shell. So when Krishna um, was asked by Sandipani Muni, part of the Vedic tradition, when you take a teacher, is you, out of gratitude to that teacher, you give dakshin. The word is dakshin. And dakshin means you give something from your heart, whatever you can, give, you give from your heart. And sometimes, according to the Vedic literature, sometimes the teacher would ask a specific dakshin from the student. So Krishna's teacher was Sandipani Muni, and he asked as dakshin to please bring my son back from death. It was said that he was killed by Panchajanya. So why would someone ask his teacher to bring his son back from death? And the answer to that is because Krishna could. And Sandipani knew that he was the supreme being capable of doing whatever. So he asked Dakshin, please bring back my son. So Krishna did. He went to where Panchajanya was. He saved the son from death, and he took the shell, the conch shell, and that's Krishna's conch. There's another meaning to Panchajanya. That means the cooperation amongst five. Because punch in Sanskrit means five. So the cooperation of five. Where's the cooperation of five? The five Pandavas. They are cooperating along with Krishna in order to rid the planet from a force, Duryodhana and his brothers, which are trying to exploit and yeah, that's the word, exploit uh, humanity. So it becomes the duty of the responsibility of the warrior to stop that from happening. So Panchajanya also means the cooperation amongst five. Panchajanya also refers to a white lotus. What does a white lotus mean? You've those of you that have practiced yoga, you've probably seen the loga symbol, the lotus symbol around. The lotus flower is considered to be very, very auspicious. So Panchajanya also refers to the white lotus, meaning it's very auspicious. So when it's blown, the sound vibration is very, very auspicious also. So that's the meaning of Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his conch shell named Devadatta. Why is it called Devadatta? Devadatta is also auspiciousness, but it really means that the devas in Sanskrit, the devas refer to the the class of humanity that are considered almost godlike. They're very, very powerful human beings. like Indra and uh, Chandra, Surya, all of these different personalities that are actually so powerful that they are given responsibility for sun and moon and Indra's in charge of the demigods themselves. So Arjuna is actually the son of Indra. So when Indra was being harassed by another class of humans called asuras. Sura means good, goodness. Asura means not so good. So there's a class of humanity called asuras, and they are constantly having doing battle with the suras, the demigods. So when Indra was being harassed, he asked Arjuna, who's this preeminent warrior, to please help him, and Arjuna did, and he actually did battle with those asuras, and he did away with them. So uh, out of appreciation, out of gratitude, Indra gave him different weapons, and he gave him his Arjuna his um, conch shell, which is called Devadatta. And then Bhima, who's another very, very powerful warrior, his conch shell is called Pundra. And Pundra means the location, the place. So Bhima is the location. He's the place of fury. He's so powerful, a warrior that he inspires terror in the hearts of his opponents. So all of these things are there, and they're given names, and the names have purpose, and the names give indication of what what those um, particular conch shells actually have the significance. So when they're blown, Krishna, Arjuna, Bhima, and then in the following verses, we have uh, Yudhisthira blew his conch shell called Ananta Vijay, which means forever victorious. And Yudhisthira is actually the actual heir apparent to this throne, this emperorship. And so his conch shell is called Ananta Vijay. And then different other personalities, when they blow it, Krishna blows it first. And so there's sound vibration. The sound vibration is pure spiritual sound. The sound vibration that joins Krishna's sound vibration is also in service to the intent is in service to Krishna and in service to the Pandavas to prevent this force from taking over and ruining humanity due to their exploitation tendencies. So when they blow it together, what does it say here? In text 16 through 18, it lists all the different conch shells that are blown. And then in text 19, what does it say? The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. What effect did it have? It shattered the heart of the sons of Dhritarashtra. That is the power or the potency of the sound vibration and its intent to save humanity. See, when we have sound vibration, which is intent is to delude humanity, then there's a lot of suffering. Why do we have such a distaste for politics and politicians? I don't want to wax political, but I do feel because we're talking about things that have relative relevant application. It's because why is it? It's because we've experienced in the course of our life a lot of untruth. And what is untruth? It's sound vibration. And what does it do? Untruth, what does it say in the Bible? The truth will set you free. So when untruth is sound, it doesn't set you free. It binds you. It binds you to a condition of illusion and a condition of suffering. That is why people are so turned off by the fact that a person will lie to their face. Have you ever had that experience where you're in a discussion with someone and that person tells you a total untruth, fabrication, and you know it? You know it's not the truth. And what was the effect of that? Anger, frustration, disappointment, if you're particularly compassionate. It has that effect on you. Even in the Yoga Sutras, when Patanjali talks about siddhis, the mystic powers in the third pada, he goes over a list, and there's different yogic siddhis that are there, right? Let me see if I can. Anima Siddhi, Lagima Siddhi, Mahima Siddhi, Prapti Siddhi, Prakamya Siddhi, Vashita Siddhi, Kamavaya Siddhi, Siddhi, etc. These are different siddhis that are there. And Patanjali tells us by focus, by deep meditation, like for instance, one that comes to mind, if you're able to deeply discipline your mind and meditate on the specific power of an animal, that you can gain that power. Like Native Americans, for instance, they're deeply connected to different animals. The eagle, for instance, the buffalo, the wolf, all of these different animals. When there's meditation and appreciation and recognition of the potencies that that animal has, then through dharana means concentration. Through that concentration, you actually are able to absorb the potency. That's what Patanjali says. So, in terms of truth, one who always speaks the truth, their words come to pass. One who is disciplined, you have to be disciplined to always seek the truth. I mean, my son and I have this conversation all the time, because kids, especially 10-year-old kids, they learn at a very early age how to manipulate words so that they get what they want. And I told, we have a constant conversation. That is not going to prove you to your benefit in the end. That you manipulate words or you use words to get what you want, even if it means untruth. But really what we want, that's one thing that we have to do. We first, through our meditation, through the yogic process, we have to really come to grips with what do we want out of life. When we come to grips with that, what do I want with life? Then the yogic process tells us how we can actually achieve what we want. Happiness. How do we achieve happiness? Contentment. How do we achieve that? When we don't know really the methodology for achieving that, then what happens is we may use untruth as a mechanism to try to achieve our happiness or our contentment, when in fact, it gives us the opposite. It's only when we understand who we really are and what our purpose is in humanity. And that was part of my discussion with my friend earlier today when we were talking about his dog dying. and him being so sad, I was saying to him, you have to understand the purpose of life. It's a journey. Animals have their journey. They have to go from, I don't know if you're aware of this, according to the Vedic paradigm, evolution means going from one species to the other, going higher and higher until you reach human form of life. Animals really don't have karma. Animals just evolve to the next species. Karma comes into play when you're able to understand that the human life has purpose and responsibility. That's when karma comes into play. So all of these things are very important things to understand. Responsibility, purpose, discipline. All of these are very big parts of yoga, the methodology that Krishna is giving us in the Bhagavad Gita. Responsibility means dharma, how to act properly, how to behave properly. All happiness, happiness means that a connection with the Supreme, an ability to be selfless. Quite often it's misconstrued that when we're selfish, when we're really out for ourselves, yeah, we can get the happiness that we want. When actually they've done studies, research, that a greater degree of happiness comes when you give rather than when you're receiving personally. And that's why, human being is endowed with a certain degree of willingness to give, a willingness to give, because it's part of our makeup when we have this willingness to give. So all of these things come into play, and now we're talking about all the sound vibration that's being there, and why does the sound vibration of transcendence have the effect on Duryodhan and his army of shattering their hearts? It's because they're living in illusion, they're promoting and propagating untruth and a lifestyle which is selfish, and therefore that is diluting the potency of truth and purity of sound vibration. It shatters that delusion. How do we come out of the illusion that puts us in a suffering condition? It's only by connecting with the truth, with reality in its truthful state of being. That is how we actually uh, rise above and begin to identify what is delusion, what is being deluded. Krishna gives a very nice verse in the book Bhagavad Gita in the second chapter. He says, Nasako vidite bhavo, nabhavo vidite sutaha. That's ah, he says here, those are seers of the truth. Okay, what does seers of the truth mean? It means those who have immersed themselves in a lifestyle of discipline that affords them the opportunity to connect with the truth of reality. Now, that may sound like a mouthful, but just think of it. It affords us the opportunity to live, to connect with truth in its ultimate stage in its ultimate existence and rid ourselves of the fog of illusion that is causing our bewilderment. And that gives us the opportunity to come in contact with happiness. So Krishna says, those who are seers of the truth, those who are studying the truth, what is the truth, what is not the truth, they have concluded that non-existence, meaning that which is temporary, like the body, now we bring it home, that which is non-existent, temporary by nature, is not truth. It's part of the illusion. So that of the non-existence, like the material body, there is no endurance. So another symptom, it's temporary, it doesn't endure. It's going to end. It's going to end. I said to my friend today when he was grieving over his dog, I said to him, "Your dog, I think the dog's name is Aki. Aki." I said, "Your dog's future is bright." I said, "Because he's an eternal soul. So he's evolving into higher and higher states of consciousness." He said, "I don't accept that. I don't accept suffering." I said to him, "How can you stop suffering? Because suffering is in the mind. Suffering is not a condition of the soul. How do you even know, or how can you even intuitively feel that there is you don't want suffering? If you're only the body and the mind, well, it's natural that the body and the mind are going to go through these changes, right? It's going to be born, it's going to grow, it's going to evolve, it's going to start to deteriorate, dwindle, and die. The D's in our life. That's the nature of the body and the mind. So if that is, and if that's all we are, if we're only the body and the mind and the intellect, which is part of the mind, and the ego, which is the identification feature of who we are, if that's all we are, then where are we coming up with the concept that I always want to be happy? It's not part of it. It's not part of the equation. We feel that way because intuitively we feel that we're something beyond the body mind complex. And the seers of the truth, as Krishna is describing here, they have identified temporary, no endurance, that is not reality. And of the eternal, the soul, there's consistency. There is no change. What is the consistent factor in our life? It's consciousness. That's the one thing that's consistent. When the body is going through all its changes, the consistent thing is awareness of our awareness. There is an awareness that we have the ability to be aware of what's going on. So it's awareness of our awareness. And that consciousness is not a product of the body. If it was, scientists, by the combination of the various elements that the body consists of, would be able to produce consciousness. And they have not. So Krishna says here, of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. There is consistency, stability, and awareness. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. So we'll see in the second chapter, when we reach the second chapter, Krishna will give Arjuna exactly that. What does the truth look like, and what does illusion look like? What is the body and all of its characteristics What is the soul and all of its characteristics? Okay, so get back to where we were. So we said that the blowing of the sound vibration when the intent was to purify through the use of Panchajanya by Krishna, Devadatta by Arjuna, Paundra by Bhima, then it has an effect to scatter, to dissipate. What does sunshine do to fog? Sunshine dissipates fog. So the cloud of illusion, due to the presence of very potent spiritual sound vibration, dissipates illusion. So we're oops, sorry. So 19, 20. At that time, Arjuna, the son of Pandu, seated in the chariot bearing the flag marked with Hanuman, took up his bow and prepared to shoot his arrows. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra, drawn in military array, Arjuna then spoke to Lord Krishna these words. Text 21 and 22. What are the words that Arjuna speaks? O infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies so that I may see those present here who desire to fight and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms. Again, Arjuna is speaking. Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Duryodhana, of Dhritarashtra, evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. 24. Now the other dialogue kicks in, Sanjaya. That was Arjuna and Krishna. First, we started off with Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra, quickly went into Krishna and Arjuna. Now, Sanjaya comes back, as he does throughout the course of the Gita, and he says, O descendant of Bharata, which is having thus been addressed by Arjuna, Lord Krishna drew up the fine chariot in the midst of the armies of both parties. So here now, the purpose here we see of Arjuna, one, he wants to know, but we also now get insight into the mindset of Arjuna. As if we heard from Duryodhana, right? We heard how Duryodhana's trying to, you know, antagonize and cajole Bhishma and Dronacharya into fighting and winning, and even though they have affection. Now we'll get into the mindset of Arjuna and how Arjuna sees things. We know a person by when they express their perspective, right? Their perception of things. That's how we really know. Two people may be in the same room, um, and they'll perceive things differently. I had a friend who unfortunately had some paranoid tendencies. So when you sit in a room with her, everything was dark. Everything was frightening to her. And I'd be sitting there, the room looked nice. I was noticing how the paint, nice colored paint and decorations on. So perception reveals how we are thinking. So we've gotten the perception of Duryodhana and how he's going to deal with the situation. Now we're going to move into Arjuna's mindset. So I'll stop here to entertain any questions. Does anyone have any question, comment, or observation? That will always be the case at the end. You don't have to just ask a question. If you have some doubt or if you have some observation or realization, please share it with us.
I just like Lakshmi how you address that sound vibration. I never thought of it like that, and that each of those conch shells was actually not in words, but transmitting a message. To me, it was very, very interesting. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Sound vibration in all of its permutations has effect on consciousness. That is why in the Bhakti Yoga tradition, there is such an emphasis on association with the proper sound vibration. And one of the main emphasis of Bhakti is kirtan, because we use the medium of melody and and rhythm to put forth sacred sound vibration. So the combination of the three captures the mind. And what is yoga? Yoga means you make you two dimensions of yoga. Be peaceful. Yogas chitta vritti narodaha. Patanjali says, mind becomes narodaha, peaceful like a calm lake, so that you can sit and see, and you can sit and be. And the only way you can sit and be is if you see. So if you see things as they are, then you can be in the moment. You can be who you really are. And it's important. It's an important component that we know who we really are and the dimension of our body, to know our body and to experience our body, to know it, our senses, to know our senses, the strengths and the weaknesses, to know when you put yourself in contact with a particular sense object that's not good for you, you know how to deal with that inevitability. The mind, to know your mind. In part, we all know our mind. We all know when our mind goes crazy and when our mind gets peaceful. We know those circumstances. But sometimes when we're not paying attention, when we're not mindful, then we forget about that and then put our minds into situations that cause a disturbance. So these are all important components. And the Bhagavad Gita gives us insight in in one text, Vedic text. It's called the Vedas, Bhedas, and the Vedas are called the differences. And we can understand the differences. Understanding of differences is called Jnana, and one of the maybe two or three chapters of the Gita is Jnana Yoga. So, what does that mean? What are the Vedas? Understanding the distinction between the supreme and the jiva, the soul, the supreme soul and the soul. That's one set of differences we have to come to understand, and Gita helps us to come to understand that. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitanam eko bohunam yo vidite kama. Nityo means the supreme eternal. Nityanam means the many eternals in the form of the jiva or the atma or the soul. The other distinction, the difference between one soul and another soul. That's a big component of the Bhakti Yoga and Patanjali's dualistic approach to yoga, classic yoga, to understand the distinction between how does Patanjali deal with it? His only concern is the soul, you, the soul. In Bhakti, the concern is compassion. By understanding the nature of your soul, you can understand the nature of other souls. That's how you become compassionate, by understanding, okay, I'm tired. I get irritable when I'm tired. So if another person is irritable at you, like That's what I often think. If I go to a store, like, I just went to a store and the cashier was irritable. So what could be my reaction? My reaction is, when you getting irritable at me? You're supposed to serve me. I'm paying money. Or you can think, yeah, yeah, I get irritable when I'm tired or when I'm hungry. So by understanding yourself and what you go through and your mind goes through, you can actually deal with other individuals who are experiencing similar things, which are causing similar responses, only in greater or lesser degrees, really. I mean, a person who has anger issues means they're experiencing that in a greater degree. We all get angry, right? So it's not like we're not going to get angry, but it's understanding my anger and what is the button that pushes it. It's release. So understanding God and soul, one soul and another, that's another. Soul and matter. That's how Krishna introduces yoga in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He introduces the difference, the distinction between soul and matter. Second chapter, seventh chapter, he talks about earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. These are the components or the elements of the external energy. What's the next verse? And there is a superior energy called the jiva or the soul, which is not of that nature. So understanding the distinction between soul and matter is very, very important because therein will lie how we will set our priorities. If we set our priorities on matter, then we will go through the ever-changing permutations of matter. Both that's why Patanjali uses the word vritti in Yoga Sutras, because vritti means the turning, the changeability of the mind and its thought process. And if we think that is us, then we will be um, consumed by that. Did you ever get on you can't shake this thought? You can't shake either you want something or you're angry at someone. You just can't get it out of your mind. That means the mind is controlling you. But the whole goal of yoga is to be Krishna is the control of all souls, or this Ishwara, or Bhagavan, or Brahman, or whatever term that you relate to. But we are the controller of our microcosmic universe called the body. And the process of yoga is to bring that under control. And it helps us to see the differences, the betas between soul and matter. And the fourth one is between God and matter, the supreme and matter, and how, as Krishna says in the seventh chapter, matter is my energy. It just has a different constitution. It's the energy that goes through these cycles, endless cycles. But I am consistent. And the soul, which is part of God, the Supreme, has that same consistency because it is not matter. It is Brahman. It is spiritual energy. It's a particle of spiritual force. It is so powerful that one particle can motivate an entire 6 foot, 9 foot frame. Someone has a 6 foot 9 inch body. The presence of the soul in that big body motivates all generates motion and movement. So, and then the distinction between matter and matter. And Krishna makes that clear. There's earth, that's matter. There's fire, that's another aspect of matter. There's water, that's another aspect of matter. There's air, another. They all have, right? Earth is solid, it's heavy. Fire has an ability to change things, changes water into condensation. Air has the ability to move things, movement. In Ayurveda, Vata is the air within the body, and it's in charge of movement. That's why when someone has difficulty in their movement, in other words, their joints, usually it's Vata imbalance. And as we grow old, what the air imbalances is why an older person feels more and more stiff and sore because the air now is getting imbalanced due to the age process. So these are the five. These are the five differences that Gita is outlining for us, and by understanding that, we can understand the true nature of the self. So if there's no questions, comments, observations, I want to thank you very much for your attendance. I want to encourage you to, to communicate with me. Let me know, how it's going for you, what you would like to see uh, more. Would you like to see more discussion of relevance, more depth of understanding of the history, et cetera, et cetera? And, I'm here for you to help you understand Gita so that you will be able to um, have the realization to use Gita, the wisdom of Gita in your everyday life. Okay, so until next week, next Tuesday, same time, same station, you all have a happy, healthy, and holy week. And I very much look forward to seeing you and sharing the Bhagavad Gita.
Sure.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hey.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Prabhu. Haribol.
Good night to you all.
Thank you,
Good night.
Lakshmi ji.
You.
Mirabai. Haribo.
Hari
Any
Bol.
kirtans coming up, Mirabai?
Not until the end of May. I'm moving to West Virginia this month.
Whoa,
And then
okay.
I've got a festival in New York State at my home ashram of Ananda Ashram.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that'll be lovely. Yep.
And make sure you let us know where you're at,
Yeah.
what you do. And also Mukti, you're a very active guy, and you let us know where you are, because you're all over the world. So it's not just for the Floridians here. I mean, you're anywhere from Russia to Italy and all the other places. So let us know where you're teaching. You teach Vedic Thai massage therapy, right?
Yeah, body work, yeah, Marmani point therapy, rhythmic compressions and but it's Ayurvedic. It has a Southeast Asian flavor to it. And but being that you bring it up, I have a 5-day class starting tomorrow at 8 a.m. So come
Hip,
by
hip, hooray.
Boynton Beach at my home.
Yeah, so if any of you have any interest in that, keep in touch with Mukti, and he'll let you know where he's traveling and doing his various seminars. And Mirabai, wonderful kirtan artist. She's dedicated her life. She's
I'll
dedicated
see you
her
guys
life.
next winter.
Can't wait. When you were here, it was,
Yeah.
house was rocking.
Oh, it was so much fun. So much fun. I'm glad I finally got to make music with you,
Yeah, you should
Laksmi.
come to
Yeah.
us. You should come with us to Puerto Rico at
Oh,
the
wow.
end of
When's
December.
that? End of
At the end of
December.
December, there's a wonderful festival. You hear that, Triana? I'm throwing in a plug for the Puerto Rico festival. Triana de la Cruz is my good friend from Puerto Rico, and she helps with the festival there.
Oh,
And
nice. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
yeah, we had great kirtans there for the festival. So
Yeah, keep me in the loop about that.
yeah, I'll
Send
keep all of
send
you in
me
the
all
loop
the
because
info.
whatever interest you have, I'm sure we have something for you. I'm going to tentatively schedule to going to a yoga fest in Nashville, Tennessee. My wife,
Nice.
uh, my wife and I are thinking about going to. We're invited to. My wife would speak a little bit on Ayurveda
Hmm.
and do some consultations, and I'll do a little kirtan. So
Hmm.
just keep in touch with the group, and you'll know about a lot of things. Of course, Trish, I see Trish every Thursday night
Joshua.
at our at our kirtan group. So
Joshua,
yeah,
you look like a Sasquatch fading in and out.
in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
Of the dark forest.
that's it. Yep, it's the true north up here. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. There's not much
Yeah.
light. Yeah.
All right, folks.
All
Have a great
right.
evening.
Love you guys.
Very good.
Love you
Bye.
all.
Haribo.